With the help of Hashem, we are learning Moed Katan Daf Yud Zayin, Daf Toiv. We left off on Daf Tez, Zayin, Amid Beis, 10 lines before the bottom of the Amid. We are continuing to darshan various psukim that we find in Shmuel Beis, all referring to the greatness of David HaMelech, and the entire Yud Zayin Amid Aleph, turning to Yud Zayin on the top of Amid Beis, we're going to be learning a lot more about a shamta, which is this generic word for the power that Beis Din have, or the power that individual Talmidei Chachamim have to excommunicate someone who is deserving to be excommunicated. Now we're going to learn that if someone wrongfully excommunicates another, that ban really, they themselves are either liable to be excommunicated or they are automatically excommunicated. So it's something that you have to be careful to make sure that someone is only placed in ban if they halachically are susceptible to that. And on the other hand, we're going to learn about the terrible power of a ban, how it will affect and how it does affect the person who was banned, to the point that there might even be a forever residue or vestige or remainder of the ban of that person. There's going to be a chazal that im roya adam sheyitzrei miskaber olav leich lamakim she'ein makirin oisoi, etc., etc. We're going to have that chazal on Daf Yud Zayin. We're going to learn the Tosfos that Rabbeinu Hanan how he explains it, and on Daf Yud Zayin Amid Beis we're going to come back to the dinim of Chol HaMoed, and as we learned in the Mishnah regarding hair cutting, that on one hand, even though the rule is that one is allowed to do even a bona fide malacha on Chol HaMoed if it is L'tzoyrech HaMoed, which should have allowed a person to take a haircut on Chol HaMoed to groom oneself for Chol HaMoed for Yom Tov, but the Chazal did not allow that, as we learned in the beginning of this Perek. And on the other hand, there is the exception to this Chumrah. Someone who was unable to take a haircut before Chol HaMoed, as the Mishnah gave examples, they are allowed to take a haircut on Chol HaMoed. So we're going to continue to learn that sugya as it relates to the following. If a person is already in Shiva, comes Yom Tov, not only, as we already mentioned, that a person doesn't practice Avelos on Yom Tov, the Yom Tov actually stops. It shortens the Shiva. Similarly, if a person is already in the Shloshim, then if Yom Tov comes, it stops the Shloshim. That's only true if the person is already in Shiva or already in the Shloshim. If a person is not yet in the Shiva period, like for example, if God forbid a person becomes an Avel during Yom Tov, which means it's not that he was already in Shiva, comes Yom Tov. He's already, Yom Tov came first, then the Yom Tov does not stop the morning. You don't begin the Shiva until after Yom Tov, but you have to properly mourn. That's one important rule. Another important rule, all linked to the dinim of taking a haircut, the exceptions for Chol HaMoed, is that we know that people who sit, God forbid, Shiva, they don't sit full days. That we do apply the rule, Niksas Hayom Kekuloi, and really we end the Shiva after Shachris. But this is really subject to a machlokes between the Chachamim and Abba Shol, machlokes Tanoim. The Chachamim don't say Miksas Hayom Kekulei when it comes to Shiva, nor when it comes to the Shloshim. Only Abba Shol is of that opinion. And putting all of these rules together, again, we're going to be speaking about that different scenarios regarding the heter of when might a person be allowed to take a haircut on Chol HaMoed. If we'll have time, at the end of Yud Zayin Amid Beis, we're going to begin learning about cutting one's nails. Cutting one's nails on Chol HaMoed, whether an oval is allowed to cut one's nails, and much, much more. But again, we're coming back to Daf Tes, Zayin Amid Beis, 10 lines before the bottom of the Amid. We began to quote the words, the Divrei David, as we spoke out to Rashi, that the words Divrei David means that these words were written on a very high level that we call Nevuah. And behemshech to that record of that nevuah, it says, these are the names of the mighty men that were for David. Yoshei Basheves, the ones who were sitting in the assembly, and the pasuk there mentions various names. Comes along our Gemara and darshins that every name mentioned in the pasuk is actually in reference to David HaMelech himself, including the ones who were sitting in the assembly. All of that is referring al pidrush to David. The following will be a record of the greatness of the Gevurah of David. Number one, what was from the many greatnesses of David HaMelech that he Yoshev Basheves, and the pshat is that people, this is normally you're sitting a group in a chevra, in a assembly. But how do we darshan it? Yoshev Basheves means that b'shosha hoya Yoshev b'yeshiva, that whenever he was sitting and learning, he was not sitting on different types of cushions or mattresses, as was the minig for the teacher, for the Av Beis Din, that they would sit on a more comfortable chair. He did not do that. He was humble. Ella al gaba hakarka. Yoshev Basheves. He sat together with everyone else. And no one role modeled that for David. Because the Chol Kama the Hava Rabbi, when David HaMelech's teacher, and we're mentioning one of his teachers, which was Ira Hayo Iri. I'm saying one of his teachers, because actually, like for example, we learn Rambam, thank God, and in the Hagam of the Rambam, when he goes through the 40 steps in the Mesoidas, the Rambam goes backwards from Ravina Ravashi all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu. So it's really David he took the place of Shmuel. But anyways, here we're saying that Ira Hayo Iri, one is alive. So when he would be the teacher, everyone would sit on the floor, but Ira would sit on top of cushions, al gabakanim, or ksasois, on mattresses. But kinach nafshe, when Ira passed away and David became the head and the leader of the Rosh Yeshiva, the Av Beis Din, the head of the Sanhedrin, aside of him being a king, have a masnei David l'Rabbanan, when he became the teacher, have a Yosef al-Gabakarka, he remained sitting on the floor. And Amrulay, they told him, you're now the Rebbe, you got to sit a little bit on a more comfortable seat. Loi kabel alei, he did not accept that. That's the meaning of Yoshev Basheves. Then when it says kach kemoini, so again, the drasha is every single word is referring to David HaMelech. Amarav, Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem reacted to the fact that David HaMelech is sitting on the floor. And he told him that Hoyel v'hishpalta atzmacha. You know what? Tehei kamoini, kach kamoini. You, David, will be like me, God Almighty. Shani goes in Gezerah. What does it mean, like me? Really, it means, like we finished the daf yesterday, you'll be an equal to me. That means you can overturn my Gezerahs. And even when I will make a Gezerah, you have the koyach v'atam mevatla. Then when it says Roish Hashol Ishim, again, what's the drasha? Tehei Roish l'shloishes avos. You will be the head. You will be the head of the three avos. Wow. Now we learned Takem Psachim Kufyutes regarding the Sudinu that's going to happen after Mashiach comes. Remember the Gemara went through who's going to do this by the Suda, who's going to do that. When it comes to the benching, who's going to lead the benching? Not Avram, nor Yitzchak, nor Yaakov will be qualified. Who will lead the benching? David HaMelech. At that time, he's going to be the Roish L'Shleishus Avos. There's another Chazal, if you remember, in Sanhedrin, that after Yeravam ben Avat went off the railings, so Hashem reached out to him and he told him, remember, Netayel Ato, Aniva Ato uben Yishai began Eden. God told Yeravam, if you'll do tshuva, then it will be us three, me, you, and Ben Yishai. These are the three. So then Yeravam asked God, mi baroish, who will be from the three, who will be baroish? And God told him about David HaMelech, Ben Yishai. So Yeravam sadly said, if I won't be Baroish, I don't want that. Maybe that's the Roish, the head of the three. Who, then it says, weiter, again, these are a part of the quotation of the Pasuk. Who adinoi ho etzni. Again, the pshat is it's a name of a person. Kaiches, the Gemara, no, it's all about David. That whenever David HaMelech was sitting and learning. So the word adinoi means hoya ma'adein. Ma'adein. It's Taftez Zayin Amud Beis. Ma'adein means that he would bend himself, he would humble himself like a worm. A worm is small. A worm crawls on the ground, and a worm is like wormy. It's flexible. It's bendable. You're not in action. That's very important. It's important for people to argue and learning. But never since I said that I have to stand my ground. He was pursuing the truth. He was very humble. But don't think that when he went out to war, he was that humble. When he went to war, he was as strong as a piece of wood, completely unflexible. Then when it says weiter, continuing to quote the pasuk, that al shmoina meis chalav b'pam echaz, that he was able to kill 800 people at one time. All David, that that when he would shoot an arrow, you know how strong King David was with the help of God. Imagine one arrow killed 800 people. So you would think that he would say, Mamash Siyata Deshmaya. David HaMelech was disappointed. He was disappointed that it was only 800 and not 1,000. Where do we find that there's such a concept that one person has the power with one Tanach to kill 1,000 enemies? Even though this is in the reverse, but there should be such a concept. And Taka, really, he should have been able to do that. The last line of the Amid, right? On one hand, he's the ultimate Baal Tshuva, and God, mamish, fully forgave David HaMelech, fully. On the other hand, sometimes we find in Chazal that because of the Uri Achiti was the husband of Bathsheba, that's why it was taken away from him that 200. So he was only able to kill 800 people with one arrow shot and not 1,000. Okay. Atkan, the Gewaldigkeit of David HaMelech, and again, we're coming back now to the sugya of bands, which as a generic word, we're going to use today the word Shamta. Says the Gemara, Amar Rebbe Tanchum, the son of Reb Chia, Ish Kfar Akai, in the name of Rabbi Yaakov Barach, in the name of Rab Simloi. Or other people have a version that the following was said. Danny is doing what Rab Chia did yesterday. Yakir says we're learning inside. Danny is learning outside. That was the machlokes. Amar Rab Tanchaim, Amar Rab Funa. Other people said, Amar Rab Funa lechude. It was direct Rab Funa daf Yud Zayin that a Talmud shenida lechvoidoi. If someone insulted on a personal level a Talmud, not the Afkirusa that we learned about, not someone who shows contempt to a Beis Din, not someone who shows contempt to a Torah, to a part of the Torah, which is much worse, which for sure justifies being put into a ban if they choose to do that. Even if there's just a personal insight to a Talmud, that is enough of a justification that if the Talmud puts him into a ban, the ban is a ban. We're saying this, as we'll see soon, that if a person doesn't have halachic legal grounds to put someone in a chedim, then their chedim is ineffective. You can't stop going around putting people in a ban. But what is the minimum amount of justification? When we learned about mevaze Talmid Chachamim, it could even be mevaze Talmud. The Tanya, as we learned yesterday, Abraisa, this whole concept that if you are menuda even to the Rav, then you're automatically also menuda to the Talmud. If you are only menuda to the Talmud, then you're not menuda to the Rav. In other words, you're not menuda to the Rav. The Rav would ain't menuda. Halakula alma menuda. No, what would make someone only be put on a ban towards because of a Talmud? If it's a person who went against the Torah or any part of it, this person won't only be menuda le Talmud. It must be this case. And that's why they felt that we have to put this person in a shamta because he's disregarding heavenly ethics. Then there's no such a thing as only a ban to the Talmud. Ein chachma ve'ein tfuna ve'ein eitzel leneged Hashem. There's neither wisdom, understanding, or counsel. Then it would be a menuda to everyone. It must mean elolav l'chvoid atzmoi. Here's where we have it. What is Danny saying?
It's an edict.
Danny's, it's very important correction. An edict. Now we got it. Oh, l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu malachim shakal yivudvari. Amar Rav Yosef. Now that we're speaking about that a Talmud means dafka, not the head of the Beis Din. A Talmud Chacham, or sometimes known as a Tsurba Mirabanan. Tsurba Mirabanan actually means a young Torah scholar. That if someone insults him, slights him, it justifies for him to put the insulter into a ban. So there's another thing that may be done by a Tsurma Mirabanan. That Tsurma Mirabanan Avadina Lenafshi Bemilsa de Psikole. In a matter that he's clearing, he's allowed to paskin his own dinah. Chevra Ovid Dina Lenafshi is really a sugya that we learned that will chazer in Baba Kama. That's a very important rule. Ovid Dina Lenafshi means there are certain times that I am allowed to, so to say, take the law on my own hand. So let me give you bekitzer 2 examples. Number 1, let's say I own this watch. It's my watch. My wife gave it to me. If someone stole it, and I see my item in their possession, I don't have to go to Beis Din. I can take it. I maybe go to Beis Din. It's called Avadin al-Rash. I know this is mine. Now, if I'm unable to take it, then I have to go to Beis Din. And there's levels to that. There are some times that I can break your door down and take it. Now, it gets a little bit fuzzy. What happens if it's not my item? But I know that Chaim owes me money. I know he owes me money. There, I'm not allowed to break down his door to take the money. But if I see Chaim's article in the public, I can take it, taking back my money.
Take it from the mikveh.
And like he said, then he says that if I go to the mikveh and Chaim is there, and then I can go into his wallet and take out the $100 bill, or his pants if it's worth, or whatever works. I can take his thing. Now you would think that that's not so nice. That Tzurma Mirabanan, Talmidei Chachamim Marbim Shalom Ba'olam. It's not just that Talmidei Chachamim are Marbim Shalom. The very definition of a Talmud Chacham is not, if the Talmud Chacham is someone who's not Marbim Shalom, it means he's not a Talmud Chacham. So you would think that such a thing a Talmud Chacham should not be allowed to do. We cannot do Avadin al-Nafshe. When you go through a Beis Din, it's more peaceful. But now that we see that he has the right to put someone in a ban, even if his honor was slighted, not the honor of God. So if he wants, we're not saying that he should do it. He also has the right, like every other Jew, Verstehst, Avadin al, and we're going to go, that's Sugi Chevra. There are many limits to it. No one should walk away thinking that I'm allowed to start taking the law into my own hands. Extra legal measures is a whole topic in halacha that we have to really know what we're doing before we do anything.
And it's a preventative maintenance, if you think about it.
What was that?
It's a preventative maintenance because people will know.
Yakir likes extra legal measures. Pashut. Okay, right. Now, and you can do that. You are allowed to do it. Now, putting a ban on someone, right, who shows contempt to God, which means to God, to the mitzvahs, to the Jewish people, to the land of Israel, whatever represents God. Here's the question. What happens if you have a tzuma midrabanan that's not behaving properly? And here the case is, senu shema'ane means what we are hearing about him makes us hate him. Someone who has a bad reputation, and we're speaking specifically, a person has a reputation that they are engaging in sexual sins, in aroyas. Now, what do you do to them? Now, if you would not be a tzuma midrabanan, you would put him into a ban. So Rav Yehuda wanted to know, if l'shamte, should we put him into a ban? Here we got a problem, because this person was a teacher. And as we learned, people have to stay away from him. So there's going to be a loss if he'll be put in a ban. L'shamte, that person, tzricha le'rabanan, Rashi writes 4 lines from the top, that the rabbanon of his locality, the asrei, because he was a Rav Hoin, he was their teacher, he taught them Torah. What not to put him into a ban? It's going to be a chil Hashem. So it's once people know that so-and-so is misbehaving, we're not going into hilchas rumors. There are halachas about it. What makes a rumor a rumor? Many kol delay pasik. If there's a rumor that goes on for 72 hours and he doesn't counter it, all of the hilchas rumors, there's a rumor on him. So Rav Yehuda, the Amoira, didn't know what to do. And when you don't know what to do, you ask. So he asked Rabba Bar Bar Chana, Mida Shmi Allah Baha. What do we do? Can we use the Shamta in our case? So he heard. So Rabba Bar Chana tells Rabbi Yehuda, yeah, Amalei Hachi Amar Rabbi Yechanan, my dechsev kisif se koyin yishmeru das. The lips of a koyin are the ones that safeguard wisdom. And the Torah yivakshu mepiu. And the sifsei koyin who has the das, we should inquire. We should make him into our teacher because he's a malach Hashem tzivakeisu. In other words, if the teacher is like a malach, then yivakshu Torah mipiv. Then he is worthy to be a teacher. But if he's not like a malach, al yivakshu Torah mipiv. I remember the Rebbe quoting this. I was there. The Rebbe was smiling. So a person can say, I never saw malach Hashem. How can I choose my Rebbe that he should be like what a Malach Hashem looks like? I forgot what the Rebbe said afterwards. The Rebbe gave up the insight. I don't remember. But the pshat is, no one makes a rumor on a Malach that he's behaving sexually wrong. There's no such a rumor on a Malach. It's once that this guy is not a Malach, then he should not be a teacher. Oh, so the moment Rav Yehuda heard that, Shamte Rav Yehuda. Okay. He put him into a ban, which means he was no longer the Rab over there. Now, okay, years go on. Rabbi Yehuda gets ill. So people came to visit him. That person also came to do Bikkur Chaylim. Now, guys, everyone was keeping him 4 amos away. People honored the ban. But still, it doesn't mean that he stays quarantined. He just stays, 6 feet away from people. And he joined. For us, he came to the Bikkur Chaylim. And Kadchazi Rabbi Yehuda, when Rabbi Yehuda saw this person, he left. And the Talmud thought that Rabbi Yehuda is laughing at him. So the Talmud, got hurt twice. He says, it's not enough that you put high gavra, that you put me into a ban. So Amalei, Rabbi Yehuda told him, in English you say, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you. I'm happy because I saw you, not at you. I'm not laughing against you. Ella, I'm happy with myself because this person was a person of stature. And he attempted many times to bribe Rabbi Yehuda, not grab a bribe, Brazilian bribe. He was trying for Rabbi Yehuda to take. Now, Rabbi Yehuda would take away the ban. This guy was misbehaving continuously. If he would have done tshuva, Rabbi Yehuda would have taken away the ban. This guy was still engaged in whatever he was doing wrong. People knew about it. It was known. This guy is failed. Rabbi Yehuda was laughing at himself that he never gave into his flattery or his bribery, and he never took away the ban. And it was a hard thing for Rabbi Yehuda. As long as this guy is still misbehaving, Rabbi Yehuda was not going to take away the ban. Rabbi Yehuda says, I'm smiling because I know Rabbi Yehuda felt he's passing away. That when I'm going to come to the other world, I'm going there I'm going there with a cheerful mind. Rabbi Yehuda had an assignment. There was pressure on him. Take away the ban. Okay, so he's sexually misbehaving as a big Yetzer Hara. Don't judge him. Rabbi Yehuda says, I'm not judging him. You can't have a person that everyone knows that he's engaged now, not in the past. That was the word. He didn't do tshuva. Even a man like you, and you were a great man, I was not flattered by you. I did not allow myself to get bribed by you or by the pressures. That's why he left. And by the way, Rabbi Yehuda passed away. Now, what happened? Now, we learned this yesterday, right? 2 days ago. What happens now? So we had this issue. If someone who put you in the ban, do you need him to release you? So yesterday we learned 3. Now we're going to learn other concepts. But the bigger issue is that, in other words, you see that not everyone agreed with Rabbi Yehuda. I don't know the details. Whatever it was, this guy was still engaged, as we'll see. He was still engaged in not good behavior. That was the nakuda. He didn't do tshuva. So he went into the Beis Midrash. Amalahu, guys, the first medium-sized line, Shiruli. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda passed away. This was like a personal thing. Release me. Amar le Rabbanan, that Gavra, the Chashiv ke Rabbi Yehuda, leka hacha de lishrilach. They felt that you don't need the same one, but you need to have someone as great as. There's no one here that's as great as Rabbi Yehuda. So who should you go to? The eighth would be, they didn't say 3. They said, Elam, Zilagabi Rabbi Yehuda Nisiyah, who was the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. This is the times of the Amoraim, the beginning of the Amoraim era. Healed the Lishrilach, with the second generation of Amoraim. Okay, Azal coming. So this Yid appears to Rabbi Yehuda Nisiyah. And he told him, he told him the whole thing. Or he didn't tell him the whole thing. He told him his narrative. So Amar Leisu Rabbi Yehuda Nisiyah told Rav Ami, Puk Ayim Bedine. Go find out what should we do in this case. Find out the circumstances. Find out what this person is doing. And if you find it appropriate to release him from the ban, then Rabbi Yehuda Nisiyah gave koyach to his shliach Rav Ami Shreilei. Ian Rav Ami Bedine and Sovel Mishrelei. Here you see that whatever was, there was a makim to be mated him. The Gemara doesn't say the details. All of that just shows you why Rabbi Yehuda was smiling, because he felt that there was Torah pressure. He made a judgment call to leave the ban on. Rav Ami made a judgment call to take it off. But the moment he said that, someone who never was in the best medrash of Rabbi Yehuda Nisyon Rav Ami, a guest came. And when he was there, Rab Shmuel Bar Nachmani stood up on his feet and he said, no. Uma shivcha shel beis Rebbe. There's a story that we're going to have soon. Hashem should stretch the time for us. The shivcha of the beis Rebbe that lo nehagu chachamim kalos reish b'niduya shalishanim even though she was just a shifcha. But when she put someone in a ban, as we'll see soon, you know what the Chachamim did? They waited 3 years to take the ban away. They were going to take it away, but they waited 3 years. So Yehuda Chavereinu Alachas Kama V'Kama, even if you think that right now he deserves to have the ban released, it's not 3 years since Rabbi Yehuda put the ban on. And what Rab Zayda said is what we would say, Hashgacha Pratis. That's the way we would word it today. The Hashgacha Pratis was, we're not minimizing Rab Shmuel Bar Nachmani, but we're maximizing it by the fact that he was never there. Right now, during that debate, he was there, and he says, "Mind the common, what's going on over here?" Like, wow, look at the Hashgacha Pratis. The Asah Ibna Hai Sava, this elder who we always know of, but he was never in our base Midrash. The Ha Kama Shani, for many years, he never showed up here. In other words, the fact that he was here during this halachic discussion is a reason why we have to listen to him. Shma Mina Loi Mi Boya L'Mishrelei. So you know what? Loi Shiro, they did not release the ban. Now, the Gemara wants to point out, the next line is to point out that they came to the right conclusion. Like I mentioned, the problem is that he did not stop his bad behavior. Snafak ki kabachi v'azl. When he walked out, he was crying. I understand this as a tshuva. Problem is, let's say an addict, they do tshuva, they cry, but they go back to their sin. So maybe the best time to pass away is after the crying, before the sin. Perfect. That's the exit. So Asa Zibura got sent up. So Zibura means a bee or a wasp, some sort of creature, these creatures that you have in Miami, and Uterake, Aamse, and it bit him on his male organ, because that was the place of his sin. Ushchev, and he passed away. You know, that Kilu God was Megala, it's like a baskoil. This guy was misbehaving. So people felt we were too gevuradik with him. No. Okay, weiter. Now we were not done yet. So now that he passed away, where are you going to bury him? Now, guys, this guy had a lot of qualities. So they have certain places, they make neighborhoods in the Beis HaChaim. No one should know about this. You have the Hasidim, the Rabbanim, neighborhoods. Oh my God.
They have neighborhoods outside.
They have neighborhoods outside, but there's neighborhoods inside. So Ailu Lema'arta the Hasidim. They wanted to bring him into the Ma'ara of the Hasidim. V'loi kiblu. He was not accepted. Now, what does it mean he was not accepted? Guys, remember these sugyas that we have by the Blazer Rav Shimon, Barry. We have in Chazal many times that a snake would come, and the snake would not allow him to be put there. And that's the Zebura. There's a Zebura. There's a snake. The Eibishter that sent the shliach, he was not. So they brought him into the Ma'art of the Dayanim. V'kiblu, and there he was allowed to be buried. Oh, now my tama. In other words, hold on, Mamanashach. If the guy was taka misbehaving, and he was not worthy to go into the Hasidim, so why was he accepted with the Dayanim? What's the answer? The Dayanim are a bunch of sinners. I mean, that's the one the Gemara explains. Not my Tama, because even though he sinned, he had a big schus. There's different ways of the Ovid Ki Rabbi Loi. The Tanya Rabbi Loi Oimer, people misquote this, but now we're gonna set the record straight. Rabbi Loi says that Imroya Adam Sheitz Gaber Olav. Eina Pitrupas Larois. It's very easy to find that person is misbehaving. When a person feels that his Yetzer Hara is getting the better of him. So Rabbi Loi said these words: sin in a place where no one will know you, at least there won't be a Chil Hashem. That's the way people misinterpret it. Let's just read the words. That go to a place where no one knows you, and get dressed in black clothing, and put on a black hat, and but you know what? Now we understand the pshat. The pshat is difficult. Says, look inside the Rabbeinu Hanano. The third Tosfos says that Rabbeinu Hanano chas v'sholem. Don't. He knows what we're thinking. He says, no, we're not saying sin, but no one should see you. What we're saying is that when you go to a place that no one knows you, you know what happens to a person when they go into Golus? You become humble. When you move, when you live in a community and people know you, then you go to a place that no one knows you. It's very humbling. Dressing in black is very humbling. There's no color. So go to a place and dress in a way where you're going to become humbled, and that humility is going to diminish the burn of the Yetzer Hara. That's the Rabbeinu Hanan. Whatever it means, this Yid was doing what he could to counter his Yetzer Hara. Either he sinned, no one, that's why there was only a rumor. No one caught him. It was a rumor. They knew this guy is misbehaving. Or at least he was trying. He was moving away and putting on black clothing. So that's the case. With the chassid, he was not. But Adayin is a given. Here you go. All right, the grace. So do with his heart desire. Sin. I like exactly. In other words, when a person feels that they cannot fight their desire, they have to change their desire. That's what Rabbeinu Hananel is saying. And okay, let's go right in. Beautiful. Next, Shivcha Shel Beis Rebbe. What was the story? Mahi says the Gemara. The Amsa the Rebbe, the maid servant of Rebbe. Chazi say, I just want to say maid servant. I heard a good word from Fabrengen last night. Chav Beis. I have to share it. I know there's no time. How was there a shivcha? Were we not all emancipated by God? Yetzias Mitzrayim. And don't say shivcha because there were poor people. Well, everyone was wealthy. We left with Rechush Gadol. What's the biggest compliment you give to a Yid? Moshe, Avdi. By Yidin, Eved is not a derogatory statement. It's a badge of honor that we reached the level of being a complete bottle. Moshe Avdi, David the Melech Avdi. Shivcha means that we became humbled. When you work around the Rebbe, every person becomes an Eved and a Shivcha. Okay, so Amsa the Beit Rebbe, Chazis Elyahu Gavra, Tavamachi Livnoi Gadol. She saw someone hitting his adult child. Now, adult child, where was it, Danny? I think in Ksubas, the Gemara gives ages. The right age to really reprimand, prior to which they're not old enough for it to be effective. Post that, they're too old. It won't be effective. 18 to 22. I forgot those later teen years. Nishtano Hativim, you have to know if that applies over here. But she saw a person being too harsh on a son when he was too old for that, which means he had then the ability to fight back. And Amra, she says, that person should be put into a ban because he's violating Lifnei Iver Leisitin Michshoel. Wow. This says Rashi Kiva, or we call Rashi Kiva the Gadolu, Shemam Levayit Ba'aviv. He might hit back. He might curse back and the end of the world. Right, Mamash Parshas Mishpatim. Look at that. Ashgacha Pratas, right? Maka Ava v'imay, Mois Yumas. Mekalal Ava v'imay, Mois Yumas. Capital crime to hit or to curse a parent. So when a person is parenting too harshly, not only are they doing the wrong because it won't be effective, their child might fight back, and the parent is Oiver Lifnei Iver. The Tanya Lifnei Iver Leisitin Michshoel means B'Makel Levnoi Hagadol HaKosov Medaber. And that person was left in a ban for 3 years. Right, another story. Reish Lakish, Hava Menater Partisa. Reish Lakish was guarding an orchard. All these great, they were working people. Reish Lakish was an orchard guard. A guard. Also, comes along a person and he began to steal figs and eat it. Because when you go and you see the big Dayan guarding a field, know what kind of guard is he? But he knows how to jog a mile, a guard. So someone went ahead and he saw the Shlakish is the guard. What is he going to do to me? He took a fig. Rama Beikala. So the Shlakish began to shout at him, hey, Ganav. So, no, Shrai. Loy Ashkach Bein. You know, they say the joke, Loy Signoif. So the guy says, I'm a chaya. I get to hear a Dvar Toida now. Loy Ashkach Bein. So Omar, Lehebo Gavar B'Shamta. Oh, the Shlakish put him into a ban. Oh, so this guy says, I'm in a ban? Adarabba, you are in a Shamta. Oh, because he tells him, what's your claim against me? That I'm chayiv money? So then, yeah, fine. Then I owe you money. Like Tosfos says, then take me to a din Torah. But nidui min is chalaytilach. In other words, a ban, it's not so simple. You have to know. In that case, he felt that you should not have put me in a ban. A gan of a Talmud Chacham.
Wasn't Reish Lakish a Tzur D'Rabbanan?
Reish Lakish was a great Tzur D'Rabbanan. So L'chayra Tzvika has all the good questions. He wasn't just a Tzurba, he was the head of the Rabbanan. But there's a point there. So Reish Lakish, so Ayit told him you're in a ban. So Reish Lakish went to the Beis Medrash. You know what, Tzvika? I think that when you put a person in a ban, if you're doing it at the moment of heat, you're angry, right? You can't do that. It has to be like a din Torah. It has to be calm. Or maybe there's a better answer for that. But that's a good question. Amalei, so they told him.
Rabbanan is for disrespecting, right?
What was that?
the tzurva derabanan is if you disrespect him, right? He was just stealing.
No, Rav Shlokish was shouting at him, "V'lo yashgach bei." That's called disrespectful. The Shlokish is a guy that's telling him, "Stop stealing." The guy says to me, "What are you going to do to me? You're not a guard. You're a Talmud Chacham. Go learn." So Amarle, so they tell him, "Sheloi nidui." His ban on you is a nidui. You are excommunicated. Shelcha ain't a nidui. How the Nemuki Yosef says from over here that if one puts someone else in a ban and it's illegal, they are banned, or there's a right to ban them. So umatakante, so the Shlokish says, what should I do? So they told him, Zilagabe, go find him. The lishlilach, go find him. He put you in a ban, he has to release you. So the Shlokish says, I don't know who he is. Lo yodanale. So Amrulay, so they told him again, what do you do? That Zilagabe Nesiya, go to the Nasi, go to the Rebbe, go to the tzaddik of the generation, the lishlilach, the Tanyas we learned, now we're putting it all together, that nidihu, the eni yedeh, mi nidahu, you don't even know who put you in a ban, yelech etzel ha-nasi, and the Nasi, right, Hamelach, Huakoil, is Yater loy neduyoi. Amar Rafuna says Rafuna, but Usha iskinu, that Av Bezdin Shesarach, if the Av Bezdin stinks, in other words, he's sinning, he's worthy to be in a ban, Ein menadenoisa, you can't do that. You just demote him. You tell him that he kabed. Kabed means don't lose your dignity, but stay home. All right? But only he's given he's given one card, go home free, but go home. But if now he's already demoted. Oh, so now why? Because if you're gonna always show him a little bit of kavod, again, like we said today, ein chachma, ve'ein tfuna, ve'ein das, ve'ein eitzel, the neged Hashem. Can't do that. Chil Hashem. However, we're pleading that Reish Lakish, Tomer Reish Lakish, Talmud Chacham shesarach ein menadin oiseh befaras. You never ban him in public. Forget the Shlakish is about tshuva. Shenemer, as it says that the chashalta hayoim, that you will stumble at the day. The chashal gam navi imcha laila. The pshat is, and there might be a navi, which is the tzaddik, who also might stumble. Every person can stumble. But what does it mean, laila? It means that if a navi stumbles, laila, cover up. Cover up means kaseo kalayla, which means don't publicly ban him. The Gemara is not saying not to ban him. Don't do it in public. Because it will cause a chili. I can see, because maybe not everyone even knows that he sinned. Like this, you're publicizing the sin. Okay. Mar zutra chasida.
Everybody else will know that he's bad if it's the
no, only his chaverim will know. Mar zutra chasida shamto. Look what he did. If he needed to ban a young student, you know what he did? He banned himself first. Now we're learning some chasidus. Bereisha mishamet nafshe. Why mishamet nafshe? Because he was in tsar. What is a shamta? You're behaving like an oval. It's a pain. He was in pain by the fact that he needed to put someone else into a ban. And then mishamta l'didei. And you know what the upside was? Is he would never forget to release him. Now we're going into a generation, not 3 years, that they were able to release him quickly. Not to forget to release him, he put himself in his ban. Like this. In other words, first of all, he would put a ban only until the night. When they would go to sleep, but he would put himself in a ban, gavaldik, and then he would ban that person. And then before he went to sleep, he would be mated. He was mated himself first to be able, Baruch used to be mated the other person. Amar Rav Gito, Amar Rav, Talmud Chacham and Nadal Atzmai, Umefel Atzmai. So after we learned the whole Amid about the power of a Talmud Chacham, Amar Rav Papa Teisili. Remember the whole Teisilis? Teisili means it's coming to me. I deserve a reward. You know why? I never put a tsurma mirabanan into a shamta. The only thing is, so what did he do if someone is misbehaving? Like what other tool did he have? Ella, kika machayev tsurma mirabanan shamta. You can't ignore if someone is misbehaving and you can't use the shamta tool. What did he do? What's the answer? What did our teachers do to us? They can hit you. That's much better. That's it. Like they said that the Marava, Mimnu, they took a vote on Negida, the Tsurma Mirabanan. They took a vote that one is allowed to give lashes even though the recipient is at surba mirabanan, if he's worthy of lashes, let him get lashes. But he did not agree to put a person in a ban. My shamta, what's the word shamta? Amarav, either sham or shame. You have to know how to read this. Misa. In other words, you know what a shamta does? It imbues a little drop of death into the person who got banned. Shmuel Amar, Shemama Yihya. Wow. No, it brings about desolation. And you know what? Now he says something even more strong. Shmuel. When they would have ovens, they would smear the inside of the oven with animal fat. And you know what, Chevra? That shmirachts never fully left the insides of the oven. In other words, when someone is put into a shamta, even after it's released, it has a residual effect. But Reish Lakish again, the Baal Tshuva, he argues. He says no. He says that if there was a shamta, but it's released, it fully goes away. He's moided that a shamta has a strong detrimental effect on the person. It affects all of the 248 limbs. But Reish Lakish shows that when you are released, and then we're going with gematrias. How do we know that it goes inside the person entirely? As it says that this is about Yerichoi. Remember that Yeshua made sure that there was a ban, that no one is allowed to take anything from Yerichoi. That was the story with Acham. That for Hoysa Hoir Chedem, the gematria Masayim Arboim Shmoino. So when there's a chedem, it goes into 248. But how do we know that when you are released? Not like Shmuel. It's not like the fat in the oven. It's fully removed, because it says Broigis that when you feel anger, please remember Rachmanis. Rachem Tiskar. You know what Rachem? Amazing. Chedem Rachem, same letters, huh? Rachem b'gematria hachi havu. Says the Gemara. Now that we said that a chedem really goes into things, so you know what? You can put animals in a chedem also. That shdei shamta agunfa the kalba. If you put a chedem, you say the chedem is only on the tail of the dog. It's going to work. It's going to go into the tail, and the chedem will do what it needs to do. Which means, here's a story. The whole kalba, there was a dog. And if you remember in Masechta Shabbos, we were learning about the shoes of the Rabbanan, about tying knots. The Rabbanan had shoes. There was a dog that liked to eat shoes, but it only ate the shoes of the Chachamim. So we had a problem. And no one knew how to find that dog. Which dog is it? So what did they do? So they put a chedem, v'shamtule. But v'shamtule means, they said, may the tail of the dog be in a chedem. What happened? There was a fire caught on the tail of the dog, and it ate up the tail. And then they found the dog. Whatever they did to the dog. A chedem has a big koyach. Another story. Now, we got to be careful never to practice these stories. This is Mishkan joke. Says it. Ahu alama. Alama means a bully, someone who was really harassing others to a level and a madrega that it was unacceptable. So this Surah Rabbanan, who was the victim, he came to Rabbi Yosef, and he told Rabbi Yosef, I don't know what to do with him. He was a bully. Again, don't minimize the koyach of putting someone in a ban and it's going to hurt him. So last line, Amar Lei. So this Surah Rabbanan tells his teacher Rabbi Yosef, no, he'll find out that I banned him and he'll bully me more. Mistafin, I'm afraid of him. So Amar Lei, so make it even stronger. How do you make it stronger? Instead of only verbalizing it, they would write down the shamta. They would write it down, and that document on which you recorded the ban is called a psicha. Shkili psicha, write it out. So he says even worse. Again, in other words, his point was that as long as the bully is still alive, I'm in trouble. He was afraid. The more I'm going to fight back, the more he's going to hurt me. So he says, even more, I'm more afraid of him. So the only solution here was to kill him. And this is how it works. And we're learning this, never to be practiced. No, write down a ban. No big target to write down a ban. And put it in a jar. Guys, jars were earthenware utensils. A human being is very much like an earthenware utensil. So placing it in the jar is like you're placing it in him. And take the jar, place the bar in a cemetery. And ukri bei alpha shipurei, Rashi says, go every day, blow in that jar 1,000 blasts. for Arbon Yom, for 40 days.
Every day.
Every day, only for 40 days, 1,000 blows. And Azal va'avid hachi, he did that. And what happened was on the 40th day, both Pekakada, the jar busts, and Umis Alama, and the bully died. Okay. So be careful with the ban. My shipure. Now, why do we blow a shofar as part of this highest level of a ban? And also, remember, we learned tut, aser tut, right? Tut, we learned that 2 days ago. So the Gemara says, the word shofar also comes from the same root of retribution, because that is part of the retribution. My tavra means, why is it that the blowing of the shofar either only is the shvarim teruah, the broken sounds, or also includes the shvarim teruah? Why do we make a broken sound? Exactly for this. Because tavrei bate rami, because a ban has the power, tavrei, it breaks even tall buildings. Doesn't matter how strong that bully was or how healthy the bully was. That's going back to whether machlekes shmuel and eish whether it's fully removed. But while a person is in a ban, there's different levels. But a ban really hurts a person.
I mean, this is not a Rosh Hashanah concept.
This is not a Rosh Hashanah concept at all.
That a shofar is for breaking.
So let me word it like this: that we blow shvarim teruah to break the bad decrees. Aha. The Tanya Amar Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. Wherever they put their eyes in a negative way, that's what we learn. Oy misa, oy oyni. Okay, Atkan, the sugya of banning. We already said Nimnu, they made a vote on Amud Aleph that we don't ban. We only beat up people. We don't put people in a ban. And just to finish the koyach, that even though there was a ban put on our Zaydis, right, in the beginning of the Hasidic movement, and there was a big svara amongst the Talmidei Hamagid Kiyadua to put back a ban on them. And for that, they needed to have the koyach of the Alter Rebbe, the koyach of Torah, who was the master in Torah. And the Alter Rebbe refused to put a chedim on people that were really persecuting us in that time because they were Yid. And the Alter Rebbe suffered consequences from that. But he refused. A Yid will never put someone else in a ban today. Beat him up, yeah, but not put him in a ban. Okay, weiter. Now we're coming back to Moed Katan. So we're learning in the Mishnah regarding the people. Remember that that if they had no opportunity to cut their hair before Yom Tov, they are allowed to cut it during Chol Hamoed. The Mishnah gave examples: a person who arrived from overseas, a person that was freed from jail. Then the Mishnah said that a Nazir whose term comes to an end. Let's say 30 days, it came to an end during the time of Nazirus, you may not cut your hair. Or the Hametzoira that's going up from Tumat Tara on the 7th day, right? What happens if the 7th day is on Chol Hamoed, right? That's the Mishnah. The Mishnah is speaking about these are also people that can take a haircut on Chol Hamoed. Now, it's not clear, are these people that can only take a haircut on Chol Hamoed if the 30th day or if was only on Yom Tov? So they mamash could not have done it before, or maybe these are people that even if they were able to take a haircut before Yom Tov and they didn't, for some reason, they will be allowed to take it on Chol Hamoed. So from Abzeda, is the Nazir and the Mitzvah like the other examples in the Mishnah that may only take a haircut only when they have no time prior, or maybe for some reason these two only. But they chose not to take a haircut on Chol Hamoed. They can before Yom Tov they can take it on Chol Hamoed, and it's the latter. So Amar Lahu Atza Beferish Abraisa. This Amoida. Right, that Rabbi Yirmiyah didn't know. Now Rabbi Zeda taught him this brayso. Call elu she'amru mutanim legalech b'moed, like a guy, someone left jail, and remember we learned to Tosfos. Either there was no barbers in jail, or that's a big thing that even if there are barbers in jail, when a person is in jail, they're not in the mood of grooming themselves. So even though they were able to, they were not able to. It's emotional distress, which has a lot of weight regarding this topic. So, but when could they take it on Chol Hamoed? Only b'shaloi lehem tonight, as we learned. But if someone was released from jail, even Erev Yom Tov in the morning, they could have gone to the barber Erev Yom Tov. However, says the Braisa, Nazir and Mitzvah are different. The 30th day ended, my friends, Erev Yom Tov, 2 days before Yom Tov, 3 days before Yom Tov. The 7th day of the Mitzvah was prior. This person could have done it, but they didn't. They are allowed to take it on Chol Hamoed. But there's a reason for that. Because both the Nazir and the Mitzayra, part of their full release from the Nazir, it's not only that he cuts his hair. Remember, he cuts his hair and he brings korbanos. Then he burns his hair under the pot of the shlamim. Then you have by the Mitzayra, we have Pesukim in the Chumash. So since the final korbanos are connected to their haircut, even though this person should have done it before, if you're going to tell this person don't do it on Chol HaMoed, then you are delaying korbanos. Korbanos is God's. Don't take away God's bread, so to say. Sholayashe korbanos. Says the Gemara Tanach, we learned in a Braisa. Another exception that's not written in the Mishnah, that a Kohen, as we learned, that during the days of his mishmar may not take a haircut. Right? What happens if somehow he ended his mishmar on Chol HaMoed? Is he also someone that couldn't have taken it erev? Or an avel? What happens if an avel is no longer an avel on Chol HaMoed? They are allowed to take a haircut on Chol HaMoed. Now, our Mishnah did not mention it, and the Gemara is understanding that it's a machlokes tanoim. Now, first of all, we have to clarify, we spoke it in the intro. I know that we only mentioned about the minog of Avelus and Yom Tov, but on Daf Chav Gimel, we will learn it's more than that, that Yom Tov interrupts Shiva, Yom Tov interrupts Shloshim, only if it already begun. That's the key. Now, when does Shiva end, B'chal? Shloshim begins when Shiva ends. When does Shiva end? Machlokes tanoim. Chachamim say full 7 days. Abba Shaul says no, mixas ayem kekuli. According to Abba Shaul, the Shiva ends the way we pass like Abba Shaul in the morning, and then you go into Shloshim. We're trying to figure out, the bottom line is that how can there be a case where the Avel only had his first opportunity on Yom Tov? No, because if the Shiva ended at Yom Tov, take a haircut at Yom Tov. Why am I saying that? This is important, guys. Taking a haircut is not connected to Shiva. Taking a haircut and cutting the nails is connected to the Shloshim. So if Erev Yom Tov was the Shiva, it ended, so it began Shloshim. If it began the Shloshim, then the Yom Tov cut off the Shloshim, then the halacha would be you can take a haircut not before Yom Tov. Because since you're going into Yom Tov and Yom Tov is cutting it off, then you can take a haircut. So again, that's a person that could have taken it before. We have to find a case that you were unable to take it before. So the Braisa says you can take it on Chol HaMoed. So the reason why we're saying Shmini is because, listen, according to Abba Shaul, what I said is correct. That if the 7th day was Erev HaRegel, Mixas Hayom Kekulai, so the Shiva ended in the morning, so the Shloshim began, and now Yom Tov is going to cut off the Shloshim, so you can take a haircut before Yom Tov, even though it's not Yom Tov yet. Within 2.5 hours, whatever the time is, Erev Yom Tov, near Yom Tov. According to the Chachamim, it's not true. According to the Chachamim, you have to keep full 7 days. If the 7th day is Shiva, Yom Tov doesn't cut off the Shloshim. Because Yom Tov and the Shloshim begin at the same time. Then you can't even take a haircut on Chol HaMoed because you are on your Shloshim. So even the Chachamim, if the 8th day is Erev HaRegel, so the Shloshim began. So Yom Tov cuts it off. So then you can't say he was unable to take it. So the Gemara says, let's make the Braisa go L'Kula Alma. But you know what the case was? The case was Yom Tov begins on Sunday. Shabbos is Erev HaRegel. Elo Shechal Shmini on Shabbos Erev HaRegel. The Gemara says that's not a good answer because even in such a case, even Chevre L'Chachamim, you are allowed to take a haircut Erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos. Halacha, why? No, take it back. Not L'Chachamim. In such a case, taka l'chachamim, you can't take a haircut. But since we paskin and Chevra, we taka paskin like Abba Shaul, means if the 8th day is Shabbos, which is Erev Yom Tov, Halskot, Friday is the 7th day of Shiva. Again, la Abba Shaul, so then the Shiva ended right after Shachris in the morning. So the Shloshim began on Friday. Now, even though Yom Tov cuts off the Shloshim, which is only Matzah Shabbos, but since Shabbos goes into Yom Tov, you are allowed to take a haircut on Erev Shabbos. Since Abba Shaul, not only that, Abba Shaul, now I go back. Even the Chachamim are moide that the Shechol Shmini Shaloi Liyas b'Shabbos Erev HaRegel Shemut legelech b'Erev Shabbos. Again, even the Chachamim, you should be allowed to take a haircut. So again, the solution is simple. Answers the Gemara Shechol Shvi Shaloi Liyas b'Shabbos Erev HaRegel. There we go. In other words, you know what Friday is, my friends? Friday is the 6th day. Friday, you can't take a haircut. No, it's Friday is the 6th day. So you were unable to take it before. What a Shabbos? What Shabbos? The 7th day. Let's go like Abba Shol. So when does Shiva end? Shabbos morning. So which means the Shloshim began. So Regel cuts it off. That's the case of the Brisa. Take it on Chol Hamoed. Now, Tana Bara holds like the Abba Shol. That holds since Mixas Hayom Kekulei, like we explained, and Yom HaShvi is not only the 7th day, but now Shabbos in this case, the 7th day is also the beginning of the Shloshim. And that's the key. If and when the Shloshim has begun prior to Yom Tov interrupts it. Even the Shabbos Haba now. So theoretically, Shabbos is already the Shloshim, and Erev Yom Tov you can take it. But since it was Shabbos, Anusu, our Tana holds like the Chachamim, which is not ideal. But if it's like the Chachamim, what does that mean? That Shabbos, the Shloshim didn't begin yet. So you can't take a haircut on Chol Hamoed. The Amri Lo Yemrin is Yom Kekuloi. Va'akata Lishlam Avelos de Shiva. So the 30, the Shloshim did not commence. If it did not commence, it's not canceled. Now, what's the case of the Kohen Gadol? That again, our Mishnah didn't mention. So the Gemara says, I'm not Kohen Gadol, Kohen. A Kohen, why would this Kohen be unable to take a haircut out of Yom Tov because of his Mishmar? If his Mishmar ended Erev Regel, then he should have taken a Yom Tov Erev Regel. So the case will be the Shlim Mishmarte Bar Regel. Very simple. It's Erev Regel. He was in his Mishmar. During the week of Mishmar, he's not allowed to take a haircut. When everyone takes a haircut, he was not allowed to. So now he can take it on Chol Hamoed. Problem is, why doesn't our Tana mention that? Our Tana disagrees with that. You know why our Tana disagrees with it? Our Tana holds that every Kohen is considered to be doing his Mishmar during Yom Tov. If you remember, we learned this in Tainus, that when they divided the Mishmaros, aside of that, on Yom Tov, not all the Karbanos, but the unique Karbanos of Yom Tov and the Lechem Apanim was divided by everyone. So that's the question. If you will consider that coin to be on guard, because he has to do some of the avoid of the day, then he may not take a haircut anyways, Chol Hamoed, because it's during his Mishmar. I'm sorry, that's in Sukkah. Not in everything, but and also that's another exception. So he may not take a haircut on Chol Hamoed, just like he may not take a haircut during his Mishmar. However, the Tana of the Braisa holds, nevertheless, but the Talmud Shel Shachar, the Talmud Shel Beinu Arbayim, that's not his Mishmar. His Mishmar already ended. Mishmar Timi Yishlimle. Therefore, he's allowed to take a haircut on Chol Hamoed because he was not allowed to take it out of Yom Tov. Let's go weiter. You should know mutarim legaleach b'meyavlon. So someone was let out of jail during their shiva. Again, in jail, they were unable to take, or they were not in the mood of taking a haircut. Same thing, they are allowed to take a haircut during their shiva. We learned in another brayser, it's aser. So Amar Rab Chizda, in the name of Rab Shila, that the first brayser that we quoted, Kitanya Hachem Mutarim, is only Beshitikafuhu Avelav, when you had two periods of Avelus, one right after the other. God forbid, person lost his father. They were in the shloishim, because cutting the hair is shloishim. He didn't finish the morning of here, and nachamal, the person is in a shiva, in a avelus. Since it's that long, they were mated it. But hold on, but we're still saying that this guy was let out of jail. In other words, we're saying that prior to the first avelus, he was unable to do it. So now, since it's one back to the other, in the second avelus, he can take a haircut. Asks the Gemara, if it's a case of back to back, then why do we even need to say that he was in jail out of the first avelus? Even if he would not have been in the jail out of the first avelus, that's the halacha that when you have two periods of mourning, one back to back, we're more lenient in the second one. Even if he was able to take a haircut out of Yom Tov, as we learned that the kafu avelav zachar zeh. And now in the second mourning period, his hair is very heavy. He Mekel Batar, he can lighten it up with a razor, meaning he cannot cut it with the scissors, but he can cut off some here. Or umachabes ksuse b'mayim, he can't use detergent, but he can use cold water. So anyways, he's allowed to. So the Gemara answers exactly that if there was no extraordinary circumstance out of the first avelus, we're lenient in the second avelus, but with a shinui, with a razor, not with a scissor. He can wash his garments only with cold water. But if not only is it tikafuhu avelav, but out of the first he was in jail, then we're completely matir. Now Amar Rab Chizda, if not for the heter of being one back to back, he would not even be able to wash his clothing in cold water. Is a raya that the issur of laundering garments for normal level isn't only that he can't wash it with detergent. During one period of avelus, you can't even wash your garments in kalte vasid and cold water. And we almost came to the end of the Amid. We'll stop over here, God willing, to be continued.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Is